Welcome to the Liberation Lab podcast, insights and interviews for the disruptive educator. I'm honored to have my guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself. Why don't you tell the people who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Mr. Ernest Cram III, your favorite Black history teacher. I am a former public school Black history teacher who now teaches Black history to the world through social media, with speaking engagements, and by authoring 2 books. And my mission is to use our history to first teach our children how great we were and still are so that we can create a better future, as well as equip parents and educators with the tools needed to dispense that information to them.
Now that is a mouthful and a great mission. Before we dive into your work, I want to travel back in time.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about you coming through. I want to talk about your schooling experience. Like, what is it like for you in education? What kind of student were you, and kind of what your experiences were before we dive into the work that you're doing to serve our educators as well?
Yeah, man, I was I like to call myself the observer. I was the student who I did what I was supposed to do. Well, first, let me backtrack. 'Cause if my mom listened to this, she's going to pop me upside the head. So my first 4 years, I was kind of rambunctious. You know, I guess I would say for me, though, like really, it was hard for me to sit still. I was very active. I got in trouble more so when I was younger, but I didn't always get in trouble in school. It was more so like in my neighborhood fighting and stuff like that. You know, I remember in first grade, my mom tells me the story about how I had a teacher who, you know, said I was bad. And my mom knew that wasn't true. She's an educator herself. And she corrected this white lady by giving her Jawanza Kunjufu's Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys.
Black boys.
Black boys. Yep. And I say that all of that to preface, you know, by the time I got to 4th grade, I had a Black lady who was Miss Irvin, shout out to her. And she was very strict and she didn't take no nonsense from me, reminded me of my grandma. And I got into shape after that. So a majority of my life, I have been that student, though, who, you know, fell in line, followed the rules. I would adapt to the climate and the situation I was in. I was always helpful to the teachers. You know, I would be good for a couple jokes here and there, but never like a class clown. I blended in, man, and I did my work. But being the observer, I was always wondering why things were the way they are. And I held some of those questions in. And just to kind of wrap it up, too, a lot of my perspective on schooling comes from the fact that I was born in a segregated neighborhood, and I think it's important that we use that language. You know, it was redlining. You know, it was so-called ghetto. But I was bused to an all-white school for 8 years. Then I went to an all-black school, so I saw both sides of this. Then that really influenced how I proceed now when I speak to people and teach about these experiences.
When we talk about some of the things in terms of the educational sector, my question is, when you compare the access you received on one side versus the access of the other, could you talk us through that?
Yeah.
What might some of us be missing?
Yeah, man, I wish I could juxtapose high school for real, because I think it's even more present then. So I went to the school, man. It was on the southwest side of Chicago, and most people think of the south side, they think it's like Black folks in Chicago, right? But it was like a pocket right before the southwest suburbs where this white neighborhood was. It was nestled on the side. It was, you know, past the train tracks, past the cemetery. You had to really, you know, drive to get there. And a lot of the things I noticed now, of course, we're coming up in the 90s. Now, we did have some great resources in that school. We had some great classes, like the computer class was top tier, some great educators. You know, I even had some Black male teachers. They were all in my specials, like music and like PE and everything. But it was a pretty supportive environment from what I understood. But the thing that I noticed the most, man, was the design of the neighborhood, you know, because like when you're young, you get to a certain point where like, your friends, you don't really, you know, you look different, but that's not the main thing about you. You know, it's really about like, do you like the same sport I like? Do you like video games? Do you like to run around until you get tired? So like this was something it was just, we're friends. But the thing that stood out to me was when I would go on the bus after school, because you know, when you grow up and you watch like a lot of these shows, let's say like Saved by the Bell and stuff like that, you would always notice that they had the kicking spot right after school. And it would be like the neighbor, you know, right after school, they going to the place, they eating food, like they're regulars. Everybody knows, you know, their name. But I never had that growing up, because my neighborhood, all we had was liquor stores. We had the Heralds, you know what I'm saying? We had barbershop, abandoned lots. We had a random little tavern in the area, and the Walgreens. That's now a Dollar Tree. But like when you go into these places, it's not for the purpose of making a family, a familiar connection. It's like, we want to make money, but we're scared of you because everything is like bulletproof up. Like it's like we got to speak through this thing. We got to turn this object so we can get our food. So there's no connection. But in a white neighborhood, everything was in better condition. And in a lot of ways, if you don't have that knowledge of why it's that way, you begin to internalize that. So to kind of answer your question, I noticed that I'm getting on the bus to go back to my neighborhood that lacked resources, and everybody that's on the bus is Black. So why aren't all my white friends getting on the bus with me? They're going to the kicking spot. They going to the Burger King. They going to the library. They got a neighborhood, like a park district football team. We didn't have none of that. So I think my education was not just based on the differences I noticed in like what we had in the schools, but more so the entire environment, because you and I both know that like it's our entire geographical location that's going to influence our education. By the time you get to 100%. That school, you got kids who are suffering from all types of traumas that have nothing to do with the school building, but it can be worsened by it, of course.
Absolutely. Chronicling how, like you said, those different experiences, even with the kick it spot and the analogy of Saved by the Bell, which is so perfect, by the way. I think about, even embedded in the analogy of Saved by the Bell there was something for kids to do. As simplistic as that sounds, like there was something for them to do. They had access to a place that welcomed them, that knew who they were, and they knew they could go there. Just about every episode, they were there. Yeah. And we talk about this in our neighborhoods, in Black neighborhoods, in terms of access, places where they could go, things to do, because when our kids are not involved and, their creative genius isn't getting out in the constructive ways, then somehow, some way, we will find a way to be able to get involved with something. And it may not be the things that we like or the things that we're trying to encourage. But I was also thinking about what stuck out to me about your story, even when you were talking about who you were in school, is in traditional schooling, we think about the kid who is disruptive, who's doing all the things, or we think about the kids who are excelling. Right. Those are the two extremes that we think about. And then we miss the quiet kid in the middle who could use that encouragement. We miss the kid who doesn't raise their hand, but gets their work done. Yeah. What do you think is missed in the middle?
Yeah, man. You know what? In the middle, to me, is where a lot of the creativity happens. You bring up a great point, because I even look back. I always got good grades, but I was never like the top student. It was A's and B's, but it might be more B's than A's. When we had, we in Chicago, in Illinois, we had something called the Iowa test, which is weird because we're in Illinois, but it was like the standardized testing system. I'm not sure how widespread it was, but you would get your grades. Now they have percentile rankings. It was back then. It was like you would get, so if you were in 8th grade, you would get like an 8.0 if you were reading at 8th grade level and everything, or you get 9.0 if you're above. I remember having students, like some of our friends, some of these white kids was like high school, grade level. And mine was always at or slightly above, but it was never like just mind blowing. And I just remember thinking like, dang, I'm smart, but like, I ain't that smart. So like, even that lack of confidence stemmed from these flawed standardized testing systems. But one of the things that I know that always separated me, and I think something that I still hold with me today, is like my parents put that nugget in me, that seed that said you can really do anything you want if you put your mind to it. So even when I saw that, it was always like, well, if I wanted to apply myself, I could accomplish that. So like what we miss in the middle is if you don't have the parents at home that's able to push that child that might be, let's say, in the B to D range, then you're missing out, I think, on being able to mold somebody. Because when we're on the middle, like we're kind of, let's say, neutral. We're on the tightrope. We're trying to balance. We could go either way. And if you don't like take the time to take note of that child that's coming in every day, maybe saying hi, maybe not, got their hands folded, doing their thing, not getting on their phone till they finish their work, you are missing out on that person that could truly make a difference in this world. Because those are the students who, because for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do, man, to my second semester in college. And that might be early for some people, but you got to understand that I made the decision to go to school still really not knowing what the heck I was going to do. It was like, well, my parents said I'm going, so I'm just going to go. And that's what a lot of us do. Had it not been for almost flunking out and just taking the Black History course, I wouldn't be here right now. But what about those kids who just go through life and then they 25, 30 and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I think for educators and parents that are listening out there, I think, one of the things that I would do when I was a classroom teacher is I would try to pinpoint a student, every so often, maybe every week, that might not get a lot of attention, for better or for worse. Yep. And let me go up to that child, talk to them. Let me before the dismissal, talk to them a little bit more, get to know them. And those kids have a lot in them, but they're on the tightrope. So they're waiting on someone to let them know what side is it okay to go to. And if we don't, become those strong influences, then they can oftentimes be beholden to some charismatic figure that comes in their life after you.
Absolutely. I see it even now, and this is my first year in administration. There are kids' names that I know. There are kids' numbers that I know by this point. Yeah. There are still, and I'd say I probably have about 75% of my kids down. There's 300 of them. But I've been challenging myself to learn every name.
Yep.
There's something about that interaction with the student when it's not, hey, but it's, hey, Nia, how are you today?
Yeah.
Right. And I've been challenging myself to do that because I want my students to feel recognized. I want them to know that their dignity and value isn't based upon what they can produce, but the fact that they just walk through the door.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've been challenging myself with that, but I think about how often we fail in terms of education just doing that. You know what I mean?
That's a great point, man, because when you feel seen, it can determine what you do. Like when somebody, it's the difference between knowing the camera's on you, getting ready to, let's say if you were an actor or something like that, or an actress, you're going through your lines, but when they say action, you morph into a different person. Now, that's not to say you're a completely different person, but you're more of what you're supposed to be. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So when you say my name when I'm coming in and you acknowledge me, it's like, oh snap, okay, I gotta be on my P's and Q's. I mean, it's the same thing that that Walmart does. It's not for a good reason necessarily, but they have that greeter to let you know you're being watched. Now, educators, we're doing it because we want you to know we're watching you because we want you to strive to be the best that you can be, man. So that's a great thing that you're doing.
Absolutely. You mentioned it was a Black History course, so you almost flunked out, and it was a Black History Talk to me about that because, and I'm gonna put all my cards on the table here now. Yeah. And we were talking about this prior to hit and record, but your what's your first book? Right behind it? Black History?
The first book,
The first book, Black History Saved My Life. I've been thinking deeply about that title and about what you obviously detailing your story through it all and an encouragement for us all through it. But the other side of it makes me wonder, what are we losing in not teaching Black history? Like whose lives are on the line now that we're not doing it, especially in the climate of, anti-CRT, which has now become a bucket for everything. It's the boogeyman, right? I think about how much we're robbing our kids and how much we're robbing others of the opportunity to know the greatness that exists in Black bodies. So talk to me about your journey, and then we'll go there.
Yeah, man, you're gonna get me riled up, man, because I'm reflecting on it, and I there are some days, bro, where you just, and I'm sure you can relate, where you just reflect on how far you've come as a person, but also as the continuance of a group of people who have gone through a lot, man. And for me, again, just being fortunate enough to have my family always valued education. I saw Black history in my house, but I never had a chance to take that course. But I was still somewhat conscious of things that were going on, not to the point where I saw racism and felt defeated, but it was I saw racism and I felt well, I could fight against that because that's what I see my parents doing. That's what I see in my house. But when I say it saved my life, I mean being that person, that child that was in the middle, the A, B, mostly B student who didn't really know what they wanted to do. I was going to go to school. I was going to get my degree, but it would have been in something that I wasn't truly passionate about. And it's something I learned, and a lot of people can probably relate to this. It's hard for me to commit to something I'm not passionate about. And I see it constantly throughout my life. When I was a teacher and I would like do extra paid things that I didn't care about, I often did not finish. I had to stop, you know? So when I say it saved my life, it literally was, I thought I wanted to do psychology. I took a course. That was my major my first year. I'm flunking. Like I was on academic probation. I said, let me take another course in this major discipline. Wasn't doing well. And I wasn't even inspired to try to find a way to take those tests better. But I said at the same time, I'm taking this Black History course just out of curiosity, because I had some friends saying it was difficult. And my thought was, how can it be difficult if you're learning about yourself? That don't even make sense. And I proved myself right because I loved it. And then I took the second Black History course. These are all 100 level. And this brother was so passionate, man, so inspiring to me. I left that class and I wanted to be some type of educator, whether it be a professor, high school teacher, something where I was giving people this information, not even ever having spoken in front of people, like in terms of like wanting to outside of a class assignment, not like still being super shy. But I said, what he's doing, I got to give to somebody. Lo and behold, bro, I find out that my mom had that same professor that I had in college that lit that fire, man. And I'm saying, like, when my very thought process was, I have to. It's like I found a fortune. I got to go back to the hood and give this. I got to give it away because I know how powerful it was, man. And when you say like the difference it makes, bro, is like our children, regardless if they're going to a majority Black or majority white school, like we're going to come across these systems. Whether you can have like a school in the hood, mostly Black staff that's very nurturing, but if it's in like what we call the hood, it's still going to be confined by these certain systemic barriers. You know what I'm saying? That we might, and I think in that situation, it makes you aware that, okay, when I'm walking home and I don't have that community space or that kick it spot, or I might not feel safe, understand that this is one of the most powerful quotes I ever heard was, you know, nothing's wrong with you, something happened to you. So nothing's wrong with us, something happened to us. That's what Black history does for me. Like it lets me know. Like I always, when I talk to educators, I even say, do you feel like this so-called achievement gap is by design or because it's our kids' destiny? You know, and our kids need to know that this opportunity achievement gap does not exist because they were destined for this. It was designed hundreds of years in the making. So it's almost like you might awake in a ditch and you're like, dang, what did I do to get here? But then somebody's giving you notes. You start opening up the notes and you're like, oh, snap. Somebody knocked me over the head and they dug the ditch. Then they threw me in it. And then they kept digging it. So it's the difference between a child, let's say, getting referrals for simply just their mannerisms. I've had kids who get referrals for staring at a white teacher in a threatening manner. The difference between like not knowing your history and knowing it says that, okay, you're threatened by my presence. I'm not actually the problem. You're threatened by me because you've been miseducated, and I'm not going to tolerate that. Or even if I have to stand in it for a couple years, I'm going to know that my self-worth is not based on that. That's the difference in academic and life achievement. Like, man, bro, there's a study that says when Black children are taught to have racial pride, they perform better academically. Now, I'm not too big on like grades as a way of like measuring our excellence, but I think it shows though that we have a certain level of confidence because most of what you do in school is not just based on ability, but the fact that you believe that you can actually do this, especially when we're in our math class. You feel what I'm saying? So it's making sense of our condition and saying that we have the ability to fight through it and make something better than this.
I love that because I think about, so now in the administrative seat and I am going to classrooms and I'm observing my teachers and I'm listening to them talk about certain things. Now, you know, I taught math for like 15 years. And so that's the department I'm over. So I kind of go into math classrooms and I'm looking at what's happening and how are things being relayed. And it made me think about, I would never describe it like this, but now seeing where my students are and now on the other side, I think about the magic that would happen in classrooms with me. So like we're talking about ratios, right? And I'm talking about ratios and the kids are like, they don't really care about them. But, but when I can take a situation and I could say, y'all know when you see a friend and they put the edge gel and to lay down their edges, but they put a little too much. So you see it crust up a little bit and you got to go help your friend. They're like, yeah, Mr. Morgan, absolutely. You know what? And now they're vibing with me. Brothers, I had a couple waivers in my class,
Yeah, just keep on brushing.
They keep going. Right. And I'm like, yeah, well, what happens if you take too much of the product? Let's say you're using the orange can that can't ever be finished.
Yeah.
You hear what I'm talking about?
Never. I think that's Murray's.
You take Murray's. Thank you. You put that thing in your hair and you are brushing and you're going to work. Right? What if you put too much product? What happens then? Oh man, my hair gets a little bit sticky. It's a little matte. It's not as okay. Cool. What you're telling me is you need the right ratio.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got everybody now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I took something that didn't relate to them, at least in their mind, and gave them an example that they already know and can embody.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think about that with our babies because all we're doing in those short examples is I want you to see yourself in the curriculum. I don't care what the curriculum is. I don't care if it's percentages. I don't care if it's ratios and proportions, which happens in 7th grade. Been teaching that my whole career. I don't care what it is. I want you to see yourself, and I want you to see yourself reflected, towards your genius, towards your creativity, towards your greatness, because that's what lives in you.
Exactly. Bro, what you saying, man, is like essentially, what I'm getting to, because my wife is a math teacher. She teaches high school math, and it's the same thing. She's able to connect, It's like you get a box to assemble things, which I hate doing for my kids, but you gotta do what you gotta do. But you get a box, right? And I don't like having to read the directions, bro. Like I need to really see it. If I saw somebody putting it together, I can do it better. Or if sometimes looking at the box, it don't always work because you might mess up one thing, but having to sit there and read it step by step is not my thing. But you are taking that same problem, that assembly thing, and you're speaking, you're decoded in their language. And I think our kids, again, going back to our history, our kids don't know that they can do it because it's not being communicated in their language, bro. Like
absolutely.
If I was taught that the Pythagorean theorem came from Imhotep or came from Africa, bro, I would be prideful. I'm like, man, we doing the African theorem. Like that, I was never taught that we contributed to math, or I was never taught that we actually taught Europeans how to, bathe themselves, how to increase their literacy and things like that. I was sitting in world history class in high school, bro, and we started with white people, which if you're, again, going back to like, how does this impact us? You're missing, and you think that's normal. And then you don't come around into slavery and imperialism, and you think that, dang, that's just where we start. But it's like, no, like you start beyond that. And when you know that, you start to look at life as, I'm trying to correct an error that was made, as opposed to I'm trying to be great for the first time. It's like, no, bro, we've been did this, man.
Absolutely. And to your point, even now as I sit here, and I say this all the time, I have problems with people who are leading or talking about liberation or talking about freedom or talking about justice, and they never tell you where they currently are learning, how they're currently challenged. As I sit here, I'm challenged by that because there are parts of my history that I've been robbed of that I'm still working to reclaim. You follow me? And I can tell you about Zeus. I can tell you about Hades. I can tell you about Hercules and Athena, and the list goes on and on and on. And I can tell you that the Romans had their version and the Greeks had their version. It was the same thing. I could tell you that. Ask me about African mythology.
Bro, man, you said a word.
No idea. You follow me?
Yeah, Roman numerals, bro. Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's it. And so when our curriculum, when our teaching practices, when our understandings and our beliefs all scream, you don't belong here, how do we get mad at our kids for feeling like they don't and acting like they don't?
Yeah.
So that brings me to the title of this episode, Black History Saved My Life. And I want to ask you, one, how did it save yours? And two, about your work that you do now, because I think that's going to flow into, some other questions that I have for you.
Yeah, man, I would say, just really looking over my life, I pinpoint three major events in my life that changed my trajectory, all rooted in Black history. And, 9 years old, going to that white school, man, learning about the presidents and just seeing this gap between, I'm seeing a wall of white men, old white men. I'm at home, we have posters. Black, it was great kings and queens of Africa, bro. I will never forget. We had them things stapled to the wall all around the house. My parents wasn't playing. So I noticed this gap of, when I'm in the school, all I see is them. But I'm here, all I see is us. So you're saying the president is the highest figure you can achieve, the highest position in this land. But they all white men. And that's a whole other question. Like, besides the racial component, it's all men. So I asked my mom at 9 years old, bro, like, why is it that we never had a Black president? 9 years old, the age my oldest daughter is now. And she said, because they're waiting on you to grow up, man. Like, bro, like that's that singular statement. And then think about the connection with me learning from the same professor that inspired her, bro. Yeah. So like that flipped the switch in my mind. Now, although now I have like this understanding of politics where I would never want to be the president. I think just as a child, though, you look at that as like this admirable figure. So that told me, and then like my whole family fed into this, man. My whole family, when they saw me, would say that to me. So it was my grandma, it was my aunts, it was my dad. It was just like, and I was really, a shy kind of like, oh, what y'all like? Don't say that to me. But that was building up my esteem. So then I'm going to this white school, going back and forth to my neighborhood. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I talked about with, almost flunking out, literally saving my life, because if I don't get my grades up by that next semester, which I did, I got to go back to my neighborhood, having spent $20,000 at that time. I got to maybe go to a community college. I got to figure out what I'm doing while also living at home and being in the same environment. And I'm sure you know too, bro, like a lot of success is dependent upon the environment you're in. So many 100%. People that I'm cool with now, or my friends now, come from that college experience because, we had fun, but it was also too like we at the library, like literally my wife, I couldn't even be with her unless I met her at the library because she was so focused on them grades, man. So like that helped me flip my whole paradigm around, because I was like, yo, I'm getting A's in every single one of these courses because I love it. And I'm obsessed with my strength, which is writing and expressing myself. So that changed my whole view on how I view education, how I viewed our information. And then, after I graduate 7 years later, I'm teaching, I'm in the class doing my thing. I have a mentoring program, but I'm still not putting myself out there like I do now. And I dealt with the hate crime. Because I recorded this incident that happened and I posted it online to get justice, I began to then speak out about it, speak about other things in Black history, post content, and do speaking engagements. And I say that it saved me in that instance because I feel like the reason why I still fight now, almost 7 years later, is because I know so much of my self-worth based on our past that although I felt I got some sort of justice in it, it does me no good if I'm not fighting for all of us. You know what I'm saying? Like I saw a quote, man. I don't even know I don't know the context of it, but I was scrolling through Twitter, so I can't even say if he really said it, but I feel like he would have. And Kyrie Irving was quoted as saying that, like, I can't, be content as long as there are still, kids in Africa working in the mines and for cobalt or for Tesla. And it's bringing up this ideology that, like, he's making millions of dollars playing the game, but the consciousness level is saying that, but we still got so much of, I'm not free unless we all free.
Unless we all free.
So like, so for me, it gave me meaning, it gave me purpose. And of course it gave me this identity, because as a Black man or a Black woman, being able to go in a room when you are likely the only one that looks like you and being able to hold your head high and not be intimidated, that only comes from a cultural identity that is refined.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because like when you in them classrooms, bro, in college, and it's just you, and the professor don't look like you, and they teaching you lies that you don't know about till later, you got
Yep.
to be able to have some type of fortitude.
It's a couple of things come up for me as you're talking. One is, for the educator who's listening, and I've been talking about this for a while now in terms of just disrupting the status quo. And hearing what you're saying, the first thing I think about is speaking life to our kids.
Yep.
Speaking life to our babies. And what I mean is you were told, nah, you could be the president from a young age. No, they waiting for you.
Yeah.
Man, I got goosebumps just hearing that.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about how many are not getting that.
Yeah.
I think about how many need to hear that, and what they're hearing in and outside of our schools, they're embodying in their lives. You've told them they're no good. You told them that they misbehave. You've told them all the things that irk your soul about them. And never once did we think, maybe I am perpetuating the behavior by continuing to only see the child for this. Are they loud in your class? Man, they're a leader that can speak to something. Are they disruptive? You're the person that can communicate when I'm not getting it right. Are you the person that is off task and talkative? Oh man, well, why don't you talk about this subject matter and help me communicate better? You're my communicator, right? If we begin to see our kids with a strength-based initiative, a strength-based understanding, then man, the work that we can do. But I'm also thinking about the fact that the reality is over 80% of our teachers do not look like you and I. You and I are literally 2% of the whole entire teaching force. I think about that on the heels of, right, we're at the beginning of March at the time of this recording, and I think about us just leaving or getting out of the shortest month of the year, talking about Black history and the nine. And so if I'm the average educator, I told them about Malcolm, maybe. Yeah. I definitely told them about Martin.
Yeah, definitely.
I definitely told them about Rosa.
Yeah, 100%.
And maybe, just maybe, I got to Thurgood. Yeah. Maybe.
Possibly.
So, like the family gathering, I got 3 in a possible, Doc. That's what I got for Black history. All right. So if that's where we're at, help our hopefully disruptive educators who are listening and saying, I need to teach Black History 365. I need to better understand how to communicate and to connect with these brilliant minds that I haven't been. This is an untapped resource for me. Help me. How do I do that?
Yeah. So I'll give you something, man. Like, speaking of, again, math, what my wife does as a math teacher, bro, is something I've never seen done. And I don't even think a lot of history teachers are doing this. She focused on a Black mathematician every day for the month. And there's an educator, she follows that post on Twitter, and she would share those, right? So my mindset would then be, we have to realize as educators that Black history it didn't just happen in February. Like Dr. Carter G. Woodson's model, what an idea was, let's come together to talk about everything we did. Let's come together to celebrate what we did the other 11 months. So it's as simple as, and I feel like for me, when people think I know everything, I'll be quick to correct you. I have this desire to learn as much as I can, and I'm great at wording Google searches, I think. You know what I'm saying? So all you got to do is have the capacity to say, this day in Black history. Put that in Google, see what pop up. Like, you can share something every day, but just to be even more practical, I would say let's reverse it, because you talked about the power of the tongue, man, and that's something I always tell people when I speak to them. I say, first, you got to start with that kid's individual identity. Before we even get to for the group, let's talk about who they think they are, who they know they are, and have them, like my kids say personalized affirmations every day before they leave. The first few years they were in school, I was saying it to them and I was having them repeat it. Now it's like it's clockwork. They got it because you like I'm gonna help you out, but I can't be with you when you in school 7-8 hours. You got to know who you are, right? So we laying that
Yeah.
foundation. Then we're gonna give you your what's your culture identity? Where your people from? You know how we say, like, I'm from Mississippi, we from here, and then we also from West and Central Africa. So like, make sure that they know that, right? This is gonna work for any kid, regardless of their background. Then the second thing I'm gonna say after we get past like the affirmation part is your room should look like, it should look like what you want them to be.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like it should look like what you want them to achieve. Like when I was growing up, my room, I wanted to be in the NBA. Like a lot of us, right? I had all the NBA posters, the rap posters. I had like all of this stuff, right? But when I left my room in my house, my parents, they didn't see no athletes. It was the, not just Dr. King, Malcolm X, but it was all those African people too that achieved great things. And the way I can like go back to that, y'all, let you know and me know that it worked. So we ain't even talking about teaching yet. Like, have them know who they are. Affirmation. You gonna say the pledge every day? Then you should be saying the affirmations 5 times a day because you pledging to a country that ain't pledging to you. So you need to pledge to yourself first, Doc. Right? Come on, right? So then we're gonna decorate that room. And I had Hispanic and Black kids majority. So I had like Hispanic scientists, Black scientists. I had some white allies up in there too. It was a very diverse school. So I want the kids to see themselves as soon as they walk in. The last thing we're gonna do, we're gonna build community. And community is not based on I'm the only teacher. Listen to me, what I say goes. It's based on what you said. It's we all have something to contribute. And if it's that child that talks a lot, then help me out. Help me pass these papers out. Help me do this. Help me do that. We're gonna have times where we come together and talk as a family. We're going to have times where we laugh as a family. Set aside 5 minutes out the week. Y'all watch some TikTok videos or something. Like, build community. Ask a kid to pick, what song you want to listen to when we come in and when we doing work. Like, community. Then you get to the work. Because once you got all of that in place, once I know I'm great, and once I see I'm great, and once you treat me like I'm great, I'm going to listen to anything you got to say. Like it's like it's really that simple. Now I know it and practice it. Yet it seems like it'd be more difficult, but no. Find some posters. Have them kids say something great about themselves. If they can't, you say it, and then say like I know when the boss says it to us, we don't want to hear we a family from the no. But when you an educator,
I don't say that, by the way.
You know what I'm saying? We only cool if you cool with these kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
when you in that classroom, you their parent until they go home. You're responsible for them.
Yeah. It's so funny. It's the same people who sometimes struggle with this kind of thing, and you ask them to plan a dinner party. They won't put on the menu what they like. They will go back and think about what all the guests like, who they'll think about the invitations, who will have a good time, who needs to be sitting with who. If you like when me and my wife were doing the seating arrangements, we knew that certain people had to sit in certain places at our wedding. We knew that we had to have good food. We knew that we had to have a great DJ. Why? Because we wanted to create this experience for those who were coming because we cared about them. And all we're saying to educators around who will listen to this is care enough to plan like you care for them. It's not you on the throne trying to communicate your message to some people who need to repeat it. It is you facilitating an environment that brings out the collective genius of your kids. And that's what it means to educate. It means to bring out, which means you got to believe it's there to begin with.
Preaching, bro. Preaching.
And so,
you say it.
Please jump in. I want you to jump in.
No. As you were talking, I'm just thinking of a coach, bro. Like, the most underrated aspect of sports, I think, is the coach, especially in professional sports, because we give all the credit to the star athlete or whatever. But like the coach can prepare you in practice, but they realize they can't play the game for you. So most of the great coaches, they sitting on the sideline. They're going to say a few things, but they sitting there looking. They going to make the adjustments to help you be great. They're going to say, well, look, I think you might need to play the 1 right now. You might need to play the 2, or you be best at this position. Best if you run this play. Because they understand they're trying to help you win, but not even just that. They're trying to help you win at life.
Yeah.
And that's all we're saying, educators. And the same thing you saying, bro. It's like, put these kids in a position to win. You don't like, I think we need to humble these educators, man. Because you see, you know how they be in meetings, bro. You don't know everything.
Yeah.
You don't know, you don't even know everything about your subject.
There it is.
Like, come on, bro. Like, if you base on what you teaching based on the year you graduated and you ain't took nothing else since then and tried to extend your education, you are failing these kids, man.
It is a commitment to a radical love that will see the greatness in our babies when the world has designed and conditioned you not to see it. And it is a commitment to a radical humility that says, I have so much more to learn and maybe I didn't get it right.
Man.
You know, I say this all the time as administrator, man, if I have to, right, because district policies and things like that have to suspend a kid, I feel it every time. I feel it. And I don't want to not feel it.
Yeah.
Because I'm always thinking about what's the effect on this family? What now has to shift in their scheduling? What has to happen for them? And if we can do that, if we can have a radical love and a radical humility, and we can begin to change some things. So let me ask you this as we are rounding out our time. First, if you were given, genie in a lamp, had to rub that thing, 3 wishes that can liberate education as you know it, what would you wish for and why?
Oh, man. Bro, first thing, I thought about this, man. I tried my best to do it in class. First thing I'm going to say is curriculum standards have to have some type of local inclusion. Like, it has to be, this is not just me with my degree coming together with other people with a degree who don't live in this community saying this is what your kids need to learn. We need to include the community, grassroots people, activists, pastors, whatever. And there needs to be some type of emphasis based on solving the issues in the immediate community. Like I had this, I like to say debate with a well-known educator on Twitter before, man. And I challenged him where I said that saying that your school is a success solely because you're sending kids to college is flawed. Because if you're sending our kids to school, that's great. But like, if the same issues exist in the neighborhood they left, then we're not fully successful in what we need to do. It's not to say you shouldn't do that, but like we all leaving, we all going away, and a lot of us, like, the goal is not necessarily to come back. So I think it needs to be something. If there's a lack of Black-owned or minority-owned businesses, it needs to be some type of focus on that. Job shadowing should be included in day. Like, I did work study when I was in school. That should still be included, right? So I think that's one thing. I also think that this is mainly for me as a history educator. I know this is difficult because like we package these kids in like sardines, but studies show that most people learn through teaching and experiences. But our kids sit down most of the day taking notes, and they're supposed to learn. We need to implement field trips more. Again, job shadowing more. Kids need to have an opportunity to get up and move without being villainized for not wanting to sit still and labeled as bad because they don't want to sit still for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, man.
So some type of mechanism where we get it in all subjects. You get active. Like science, they have labs. We got to figure out some way to do that in all classes, because if kids, like, they would like school more if they really knew the practicality of learning history and science and math, and they don't always see that, so that's my second thing, man. My third thing, I haven't thought about the third one all the way through, so I'm gonna just say how I'm feeling now. Teachers deserve way more money. I just think like it again, you got the coach, you got the players. Like, we want to do some stuff for the players, get them outside, make curriculum better. But like, Phil Jackson wouldn't have been coaching that long if he was getting paid $40,000. But like, my job, no disrespect, was more important than Phil Jackson's. I don't. That's no debate to me.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? So teachers should be paid their worth. And I don't think it can even be quantified. I can't put a number on it, but it's way more than starting off in 40, 50, or even 60. And I do understand the issue with some. Maybe you're attracting people who might not. But no, I think you worry about that when you get to that when you cross that river. Maybe you don't attract people who truly care. But then going back to the test that certifies us, there should be something in that test that's not based on simply answering questions correctly, but measuring your character as a person. It seems like common sense, right?
It would seem like it, Doc. It would seem like it. But I mean, it's the reason that, you and I are in this work, trying to fight what we can do and change things, man.
Exactly.
I want to say before we get off, man, you inspire me, brother.
Thank you, bro.
I appreciate the work that you do. Your work has made the work that I do with Liberation Lab that much better. It is great to see all things, anything I can do to amplify and vice versa. I'm sure, man. I love what you do, man, and I'm a fan. So I just want to let you know I appreciate you and the work that you do. For those that are listening and want to connect with your work, want to buy your book, want to buy his book, please buy his book, that want to do those things, please connect them to your stuff.
Yeah, first off, same, bro. Right back at you, man, because you're doing some great work. And it is comforting to know that you are an administrator, you're in the class. You know what I'm saying? You're in the building with these kids every day. And knowing your thought process and what you do at Liberation Lab, I know our kids are in great shape, For everybody that's listening, man, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at MRCrim3. I'm posting Black History content dang near every day. So that we can continue every day. We can continue to learn, because I don't want that to be a barrier. If your kid is not getting what they need in class, go to those board meetings. But in the meantime, follow my page, get that information. You can buy my books at my website, ernestcrim.com. I have 2. Black History Saved My Life is great for teens and adults, and the ABCs of Affirming Black Children. I'll say that's a family book, but start reading it to your babies as soon as they out the womb, is what I would say. And also, speaking engagements, consultations, anything I can do to help out the community, I'm here.
And they can go to your site for that?
Yes, indeed. Everything is at ernestcrim.com, or you can go to my social media at MRCrim, and you'll see the link tree there too. So.
Perfect. Listen, he's a whole father out here that has to jet to go get his daughter. So we're going to honor this man's time. Thank you so much, brother, for spending time with us. And man, this won't be the last time. So I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, indeed. Likewise, bro.